Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of Inside the Naval Postgraduate School. From our campus here in Monterey, California, I'm your host Alan Richmond right here on the Pentagon Channel. Welcome to the show. Well, in this episode, we'll travel to Camp Roberts, California for a field joint agency experimentation exercise. But first, recently we had the opportunity and the honor to visit with the commander of U.S. Southern Command, General John Kelly. General, thank you very much for taking time to appear with us here on Inside the Naval Postgraduate School on the Pentagon Channel. One of Southcom's core priorities lies in contingency response operations, such as humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. I'm wondering if you can comment on the likelihood that HADR operations will continue to be a foundational operation set for your command, and do you see it increasing in frequency or severity?
Well, you know, it is a part of the world that's subjected to a fair number of threats. Hurricanes, clearly, during the hurricane season, June to November, there's been some really bad, instances in the past where some of these countries have been really whacked pretty good. Earthquakes are always an issue. You remember a couple of years ago, not 3 years ago now, the Haiti earthquake was devastating to that country. But there are volcanoes, there are, heavy rains that cause floods. What has happened over the last few years really is most of the countries have developed a pretty good domestic ability to deal with these things. You know, there was a pretty bad earthquake in Chile a few years ago and they did just fine. I mean, we did provide some help, certainly offered what help. So they did very well. By the same token, the El Salvadorans and the Hondurans will have, mostly floods, although the Hondurans had a very, very bad hurricane a few years ago. But today they're much better off. These countries have come a long way in the last 15, 20 years, but we stand ready to do that.
What are some of the greatest challenges facing Southcom AOR now and into the future?
I would start by saying the very good news about Latin America is that, with the exception of very few nations, Latin American countries, Central American countries, the Caribbean, they want the United States in their lives economically and from a security point of view. To continue the good news, for the most part, many of the economies are doing pretty well. A little bit of a slowdown recently in many of them, but they're doing pretty well. And democracy, to a large degree, has taken hold. And I have to give them a shout out for the human rights records that they are more and more establishing. They're doing very, very well and taking it very, very seriously. So that's all the good news. The downside is, as the U.S. military gets smaller and we pivot to the Pacific, there's almost nothing available for me in Latin America. And the one single thing that we can really make a difference in, with really no violence and very efficiently is to really impede the flow of drugs up from Latin America. But that takes not necessarily warships, but a platform to fly helicopters off of. And we can get dozens and even 150 tons and more with almost no effort, no violence, and in very large amounts, 2 to 5 tons at a time. Once it gets ashore and gets into the United States, it's virtually impossible to stop.
Sir, how has Southcom's partnership with NPS helped to enhance your command's ability to meet its technological requirements?
Several programs, but they all add up to things that, I don't have a resident ability to study some of these things or to develop some of these things. So to plug into academic institutions like Naval Postgraduate School, or frankly, we have some great relationships with the University of Miami, the University of South Florida, academic universities in and around the Miami area that provide a tremendous amount of help. But in particular, there are some communications initiatives here that we're working with NPS and small satellites, as well as some undersea monitoring devices.
Another core priority at Southcom is the building partner capacity, and I'm wondering, is there an expanding role for NPS through workshops like these, and how do they ultimately help Southcom's work throughout the region?
Southcom is a very, very unique, of the 6 geographical combatant commands, I think the most unique, because what Southcom doesn't need is heavy brigades with tanks or fighter planes or aircraft carriers. There's just no need for that kind of thing. So our day-to-day job is engaging with partner militaries as well as partner governments, ministers of defense and ministers of interior, ministers of security. So as a military guy or gal, you really have to switch gears, slow down, and understand that it's not a military solution. So how do we use various institutions like NPS to do that? To bring people in and help us learn how to better deal with people who are not looking at military solutions, but rather economic solutions or social solutions.
Can you speak to the value that FAOs armed with graduate education and regional studies bring to the table? And how does NPS-led education in the area of Latin American culture, politics, and history support decision makers throughout your area of responsibility?
The thing that the FAOs oftentimes get very fast when they move to these countries is real access to real important people, sometimes more so than the ambassador and his or her staff. The mill-to-mill thing is automatic, whether it's a major or a colonel that comes in. The access that one of the FAOs gets to the upper levels of the military is almost immediate. And the level of interaction relative to, the 3- or 4-star general in some country in Latin America calling the colonel saying, this is what I'm thinking of doing with my Army or with my Air Force. Do you think this is a good idea? And that FAO, if he's as good as he should be, can offer his own experiences or link him up.
I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for NPS and Southcom to utilize these techniques in other capacities. And how would you suggest NPS focus these and similar efforts to best meet your challenges as a combatant commander?
The idea that we can ask the Naval Postgraduate School to look at something specific, whether it has to do with drugs or the economic or the environmental degradation because of illegal the impact on the environment because of illegal mining, as an example, in Peru or Colombia, to help focus on things that I just don't have the technical expertise to do. And schools like NPS can come down and do their study, come back and say, this is how you do it. Or it's very, very important.
Well, sir, obviously you started as an enlisted person in the Marine Corps and then through the Officer Corps. And I'm just wondering, through your very, very impressive career, what's the best part about your job now?
Working with young soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guard. You just can't, the worst thing about getting senior is you have less and less contact with the real people that make it really happen in the U.S. military, and that is the junior officers and the younger troops. I always say the best job I ever had was when I was an infantry sergeant. Being a company commander as a captain, infantry captain, was pretty good, but after that, really all downhill. It's not much fun. So the best part of my job, and it's also the part of the job I don't get much of, and that is dealing with the enlisted folks.
Well, sir, thank you very much for appearing on Inside NPS, and Semper Fi.
Semper Fi.
Well, stay with us. There's more to come on Inside NPS right here on the Pentagon Channel. Welcome back to the show. Well, recently we had the opportunity to travel out into the field with Professor Ray Bittner from the Naval Postgraduate School to GIFX. GIFX, once again, on the road with Dr. Ray Bittner. Ray, tell us what we're doing at Camp Roberts this time around.
All right, so the 14.2 version of Joint Interagency Field Experimentation has brought together about 70 different organizations to work on a variety of problems for the joint interagency community. Our Office of Secretary of Defense and Department of Homeland Security sponsors have provided some really, really interesting input on problems that the COCOMs and the interagency need worked on. So out here this time, in addition to our primary stakeholders, the combatant commands, where we've got our STRATCOM and our Pacific Command, Central Command, and Northern Command is out here in force. We've also got Transportation Command out here, and those guys are working with interagency. We've got Department of State, Health and Human Services on the Homeland Security side, and in addition to the department itself, Customs and Border Patrol has been out. We've had folks working on mapping tunnels across the U.S. border, looking at technology for finding tunnels, looking inside the buildings. We have social media teams that are literally working live with the storm that's occurring over in Atlanta right now, and helping the first responders. One of the NGO organizations over there, Humanity Roads, is actually taking the data produced here at the experiment and using that in Georgia to support the activities that are going on there. So a wide variety of activities, from high energy weapon systems for the Navy Special Warfare and our China Lake Navy Warfare Center folks, to these social media activities that, how do we help distressed populations in the United States as well, of course, globally in the Navy Marine Corps mission.
It may seem obvious as to why it's important, but from your perspective, why is GIFX so important, and what do we accomplish each time we come out to the field?
So, as a professor at the Naval Postgraduate School, the most important thing is it keeps our students and our faculty that participate tightly coupled with the problems associated with securing the country. So from humanitarian assistance, disaster relief to warfighting, our students and our faculty through GIFX are engaged with the military organizations and the whole of government U.S. organizations that enable them to be relevant and current when they graduate.
So as we end GIFX, where do we go from here? What happens to the end result of the coming together of all these agencies and all these people? What's the next step?
So the Naval Postgraduate School actually produces a report that's available both to participants and to other government agencies. And the nature of the information varies a little bit. Some is government to government only type of things, and some of the information is open and available to the public. For the most part, we try to make everything we can open to as many people to fit our education mission. However, really the most important part is the learning that took place here among the different participants. So a couple of classes in the Information Sciences Department were out here working on projects, and they learned information that will go back and roll right into those course projects that they're working on. My colleagues in their teaching will take the learning here, and they'll have new examples for their course material to keep things fresh and current and relevant. And then the COCOMs and the government stakeholders go back, and they change what they do in their organization. So as you know, in the past, NPS in the GIFX environment has been given credit for improving FEMA performance during the storms on the East Coast, Sandy. And right now they're assisting in Georgia at that level. At the military level, GIFX projects have been rolled into several military capabilities. Most recently, a couple of new classified programs have come into existence based on things that have happened out of GIFX.
Great. Ray, always good to be with you in the field, and congratulations on a good GIFX.
Thank you, Alan. Good to have you guys out.
While at the field exercise, we had the opportunity to speak with one of our NPS students who was involved. Well, we're at Camp Roberts, California, talking to one of our current NPS students, the United States Marine Captain, Caroline Scudder. Hi, Caroline. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good. Tell me, first of all, where are you from?
Originally, I'm from New Mexico.
And how long have you been in the Marine Corps?
About 8.5 years.
Great. And now you're studying at NPS, and what did you do before you came to NPS, and what are you studying?
Before Naval Postgraduate School, I was a Huey pilot by trade, UH-1 Novembers, which the Marine Corps doesn't fly anymore. Currently, I'm studying Information Warfare Systems Engineering. I'll graduate in the summer of 2015.
Great. And how are you enjoying your time at the Naval Postgraduate School?
It's interesting. It's very odd to go from the operating forces, where everything you do is mission or training oriented, and back into the education environment. And that's a transition I think a lot of the students have a difficult time getting their footing with.
Well, you happen to be with us at GIFX at Camp Roberts, California, with some of the other NPS students and Marines. Tell us a little bit about your impressions of what's going on here at GIFX.
This is actually very fascinating. I've never heard of Camp Roberts or GIFX before. Dr. Bittner asked us to come down, get our hands on, get eyes on, and get some briefs on what's going on with some of the cutting edge technologies that the Navy and Marine Corps are looking into. So this is really an opportunity for us to look at things that engineers are working on that are funded and that the Pentagon is looking to push more funding into, that will give us thesis topics, basically, areas of study that the military is hoping to further. So this is our chance to bring our operational experience to the academic environment and then to the experimental field. Come down here and where there's a lot of space and a lot of facilities available for us.
So you're impressed with what you've seen here today?
Yes, very much so.
Good. Well, good luck with your studies at the Naval Postgraduate School in Semper Fi.
Great. Thank you very much. Semper Fi.
Well, of course, science and technology plays a huge role in this exercise, and we had the opportunity to speak with Jim Grove from Homeland Security. Jim, tell us a little bit about your area of responsibility within your organization.
Well, in science and technology, we're always looking for those technologies that are on the cutting edge, that solve our capability gaps for the Homeland Security enterprise. And we see GIFX and other venues as opportunities to go out and look at what is being innovated, interact with those technologists, provide them feedback on the things that our end users are looking for and our first responders, and then hopefully create products that are useful and meaningful to our responders.
So GIFX really is an important event for you from a learning perspective.
It is. It helps us with making research and development decisions. about where we spend the few dollars that we do have at our level, and then those decisions that we make about how do we encourage the community, or how do we work and develop prototypes with the business community and get those out to first responders and further assess those and help them steer their technology so that they're really meeting what our first responders say that they need.
And I would imagine too, because technology changes so quickly, that every time you come to an event like GIFX, you really walk away with brand new information and new technology that you can use for them.
It is, and it's iterative. So we commit it and we learn something, we provide that feedback. In some cases, we find a couple of technologies that are good matches. They work together, and then we're excited to come back the next time to see what they've done without our help, and then how much of an impact that has on what we're trying to accomplish.
I know one of the themes here at GIFX is that we need to talk and find out who is doing what, so we're all on the same page and not go back to our respective organizations and work on things, but really kind of work actively on them here and then go back and perfect them.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that the collaborative environment that the Naval Postgraduate School has set up has allowed us to continue to communicate between events and collaborate, at least from the Department of Homeland Security, with the Department of Defense. And there's a lot of, those combatant commands are out doing humanitarian assistance, disaster relief. It's a complete overlay. The areas where we're working in social media and other kinds of venues are perfect match to working with NPS and our DoD colleagues. And then we bring other interagency folks here from the Department of State and Health and Human Services and others, and that helps us get together, help us get on the same sheet of music, and again, not duplicate efforts. And then when we find somebody's doing something, then we can partner with them as well.
Let's talk a little bit about those first responders. You mentioned them a couple of times, and you can't say first responder without, in the same breath, Homeland Security. It really is a critical component for those two to work so close together, isn't it?
It is, and I think maybe even a better term is the whole Homeland Security enterprise, because that's what we're really trying to get at. And first responders are thrown around, end users are thrown around in this environment, but it really is everybody that responds to an incident is part of the environment that we're trying to impact through technologies, helping them to do their jobs better.
Jim, what do you hope that you walk away from when GIFX is over, and what kinds of things are you learning now?
I think we want to walk away with an idea of what technologies have been brought to this event that we've identified that are of interest to our first responders, and closing gaps that have been identified for our components, and how close they are to meeting the needs that we have. And then being able to go back to our technologists in Washington and to identify, we found this technology, this is where it's at, and this is a starting point by which we can close that gap.
Well, you do a really important job, so thanks to you and your team for taking the time to be here at GIFX and be a participant, and thanks for your support and taking time to talk with us.
No, thanks, and I appreciate everything Naval Postgraduate School is doing to help the Homeland Security enterprise.
Well, stay with us. There's much more to come on Inside NPS. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Inside NPS. And remember, no matter where your service takes you, the latest breaking news from the Naval Postgraduate School campus in Monterey is always at your fingertips through our official Twitter site. Stay informed and follow us at NPS_Monterey. Well, collaboration is certainly a key here at GIFX. We had the chance to talk with Karina Dubois, who was one of the participants from the State Department.
I come out here, one, to make connections, to make it so that I can establish relationships with the interagency. Two is to evaluate new technology and to understand what is going on in the field. I think the U.S. government has a high illiteracy rate when it comes to how we use some new tech, especially platforms like social media, crowd mapping, those sorts of things. And so this lets me know what is possible, and then helps me go back to establishing those relationships to see how we can share our information and our resources. Social media for crowd analysis as well as decision-making support at the highest levels, how we put that into a battle rhythm, how we use that for humanitarian and disaster response. Also looking at crowdsource mapping, basically understanding what it is we need to know. There's a huge snowstorm right now back east, and it's making it so that all of us that have flown out here may not be able to get home. So it's a prime example, if you take away like the big disaster considerations, of knowing really just what decision we're going to make. Do we stay? Do we go? Do we get stuck in Atlanta? Do we wait it out in LA? right? These are basic decisions that we're able to make while we're level-headed. Imagine having to make those decisions if you're stuck in Atlanta right now while your car isn't moving. How do you get home? How do you get your kids from school? What happens if your mom's oxygen is running out? These are all things that we can learn and make actionable decisions about with the tools, technology, and relationships out here. Well, this gives the warfighter the ability to know what's happening on the ground. So you've got somebody that's in command and control, but this lets you know, it's essentially, you know what it is you're about to know. And so you have much more situational awareness. You're able to make much more informed decisions. And some of those are moment to moment on the ground based on the credibility of the information you're getting. Social media is hugely important to that. So there's two things. One is hearing what the public is saying and being able to make credible decisions, and hearing what the public might be trying, or hearing what other actors might be trying to influence you that might not be credible. So coming out here, you get to see not only how these tools can help you, but also how these tools can harm you, and how you can how we can protect ourselves as individuals and the U.S. government. Already, I think that there's been 12 emails that go back and forth between people about the information that we need to share. And beyond that, we're going to put on a tabletop exercise where we do some GIS mapping in conjunction with several of the COCOMs out here, FEMA, HHS, and bringing together some NGOs and partners that we've met specifically at GIFX. So we have a huge takeaway that would not have happened had I not been coming out here.
Well, of course, technology is key at GIFX. Here's a look at Goldeneye.
Goldeneye is a mobile, wireless, self-contained personal computing system that operates off of speech and gesture. It has 14 megapixel CMOS imager, which combined with a full suite of Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and 4G LTE basically make you a walking television station. Some of the devices will come with optional SWIR, IR, or terahertz cameras, which are about the same size that mount on the other side. So now you have multiple frequencies that you can use to see in areas where normal vision is not adequate. We developed Goldeneye as a tool for people that needed their hands free in order to perform their tasks, climb up and down ladders, work in adverse weather, carry while they're busy collecting information. Basically, you run into the typical scenario where you've got individuals, say in fire service, that are going into a smoke-filled building. The way they get around now is they take their axe in one hand and they crawl around on their hands and knees so they don't tip over, fall into something that they can't see. So when you walk into that environment, now you can't see in front of your face. You flip on the IR camera and now you can look around, and based on variations in heat, you can see where the chairs are, you can see where the floor is, you can see a person laying over there in a smoke-filled environment where you might not find them otherwise. If you're an EMT and you show up on a scene of an accident and it's in a remote area, the biggest problem they run into once they find the accident scene is if somebody's ejected from the vehicle, where are they? Are they 10 yards away? Are they back there 50 yards behind you because it rolled, flipped, and went off into a ravine? When you flip on the IR camera and you look around, if there's somebody out there in the bushes, they're lighting up just like an LED. You just look around, there he is right there. It's all about saving time, finding the information that you need.
Well, of course, first responders and technology are a key component at GIFX.
We're out here today. We have a technology that we've developed we really think can help first responders as well as warfighters more generally speaking. And this is a really unique opportunity for us to test out the stuff that we have with the people who will actually use it. It's really been a tremendous opportunity. So what we have here is a tactile communication system. We call it STRAP, which is an acronym for something I don't even remember what it is. But it's a shirt, and what we've done is sewed into it vibrating tactors. So if you think about your cell phone when it buzzes, like it's basically the same technology built into a shirt. And with this, we can communicate a number of commands, including, hey, go over here, left, right, forward, get up, get down, and then most importantly, get the heck out of there. If you think about a time when you would need a first responder, your house is on fire, something really catastrophic is about to happen. There's a lot of smoke, there's a lot of noise, there are explosions, things are crazy, so your eyes and your ears aren't really going to be the best way for you to communicate. The idea behind this is that if I can buzz you on your chest, one, you might not have a whole lot of gear here, so this would be a good place for me to send this sort of a message. But then also, I can talk to you without all this other distraction. This is something we developed for DARPA. It's a prototype right now. We're trying to take it kind of to the next level, but we needed this user feedback that we've been getting. How does this integrate with the gear that you'd be wearing? Is this something that you can pay attention to in a situation? For us, it really the very simple things like if you're running at top speed, are you going to be out of range of this system here very quickly? It turns out you are, and we had no idea. So something like that is, it's been a great opportunity and a lot of good feedback for us.
Well, that's it for this episode of Inside the Naval Postgraduate School. From Monterey, California, I'm your host, Alan Richmond, right here on the Pentagon Channel. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.